Okay. And okay. Welcome, Eric. This is Eric Migdal of It's All Relative Genealogy LLC. We welcome him to Hageman Memorial Library's Genealogy Club. Thank you for joining us this evening. And we're excited to see your presentation, and we'll have questions following it. We welcome you from New Jersey. Thank you very much again for doing this for us. So without further ado, I guess we'll turn it on over to you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Cynthia and the Hageman Library. I've done several presentations for this library, and they've always been very well received, and the patrons and the members of the club really enjoyed the presentation, so I'm back for another. Tonight's presentation is going to be on places to find records to help you in your genealogy research and ways of using it. How I used some of my records, and a lot of it features a lot of my family. I do tell my story within the slides. I usually start off with a little bit of an introduction about how I got started, but since it's in the slides, I'll just start up the slides and we'll go from there. And then if you have questions about it afterwards, you can always just ask me. I don't have a problem sharing the information. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to make sure everybody can see it. Right, we're all good, Cynthia. You can see my slides.
Yeah, we can. Can everybody on Zoom? If anybody cannot see the screen, please let us know. I guess everybody can.
Yep. Let me get rid of the video panel here. Get rid of this. Okay, so finding information to further understand your family's history. So what is genealogy? I start off with a little terminology all the time. Genealogy is also known as family history and is the study of families and the tracing of their lineages. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and family trees to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and the pedigrees of its members. So when I started, since I was adopted, I had no knowledge of my biological family. My only source of information was from my mom. My only clues were one page of my adoption decree and a receipt from the hospital I was born in. They both listed my biological mother's name as Rose Becker. When I started my search for biological family over 25 years ago, I didn't have the online computer-based research we have today. My search started with contacting the states of Florida, where I was born, and New York, where my adoption was finalized. I searched out groups like ALMA, the Adoptees Liberty Movement Association, to assist me on how to get information. They were the ones who taught me how to go to the library, look up microfilm, microfiche index cards with information on it. I spent countless hours in the New York City Public Library going through birth records, searching for persons born between 1945 and 1954 with the correct name, Rose Becker. I joined groups and signed up with adoption registries throughout the United States. So, boy, was I wrong. So when you start researching your family, you want to make sure your starting information is correct. I was under the belief that my biological mother was young, Orthodox, Jewish, and from New York City. I reached out to a group called Florida Adoption Reunion Registry and signed up with them. And they gave me my biggest break in my search. Apparently, my biological mother was age 38 at the time of my birth, and from a Midwestern state starting with the letter I, so not young, not from New York. That was all the information that was allowed to be given. Surprise! She was not young. She was not Orthodox. She was not from New York City. Even her name was not correct. It took almost 22 years until I found out that the name on the records I had was an alias, and the assumptions I had based on what my mother told me were wrong. Some of the best practices for doing research into your family is always going to be look for free or inexpensive places to search. Look for groups relating to your research on Facebook and Yahoo. Use Google to research locations, old maps, and historical information. If you do buy a subscription to anything related to research, make sure you are using it. If not, cancel your subscription and renew it when you know you will use it more to its fullest. Use all parts of genealogy, family tree building, research, and DNA matches if you choose to do a DNA test. Remember to support your local library. They have a lot of ways to help research your family for you for free. So where do you start? Talk to your family. Find family stories that you might have heard. Write them down. Find documents that your family might have. Bibles with information written in it about births, deaths, and marriages. Birth, marriage, and death certificates. Pictures, obviously those that have a name on it and a date are going to be better to have. Notes and letters. A letter may show relationships, for example, marriages, births, and deaths in the family. Military documents that you might have stored away. Legal documents such as wills and real estate transactions. The most important information to find are going to be names, dates, and locations, the who, the when, and where things occurred. Now, there are a lot of places to search for records and information. Some of the few that I really like to use most of the time are going to be Ancestry.com, that has over 20 billion records, including all of the United States Census records, birth, death index records, marriage information, and immigration records. They do have a basic subscription cost of $24.99 a month. A 6-month account is less per month, and they do have a free account that is available with limited usage. Libraries usually also do have some sort of research guides for you to use, including Ancestry, Library Edition, and a couple of others that are out there. Family Search is a nonprofit website offering genealogical records and software. It is operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and is closely connected with the Family History Department. And it's free, one of the great ones. No subscription necessary. You sign up using a username, usually an email address, and a password. Fold 3 features premier collections of original military records. These records include the stories, photos, and personal documents of the men and women who served in the military. And membership is about $80 per year. Newspapers.com is the largest online newspaper archive, consisting of over 617 million pages from 20,000 newspapers. Newspapers provide a unique view of the past and can help us understand and connect with the people and events of an earlier time. The cost is about $20 per month. One of the things I like to show people in the presentations right off is when you go to a search location and you want to look up information and they have one single search bar window like Google has, like this on Fold 3, and you're looking for something specific, one of the best tips is to put the information in quotation marks. This will allow you to search for Frank Smith. Not everyone named Frank, not everyone named Smith, but just Frank Smith. On Fold 3 that I have up here in front of you, You can see you can filter through different countries, different conflicts and wars that we've been involved with, and other countries have been involved with, and lots of other information to help you look for military record information. Newspapers.com also has a single bar search window. Anything you want to look for specifically, like a name, put in quotation marks. Newspapers are very valuable when you get to looking for birth announcements, marriage announcements, and obituaries. They usually have a lot of good information. At newspapers.com, you can easily view, print, save, and share your findings and upload it directly to your Ancestry family tree if you have one there. Family Search, I mentioned earlier, is the free site run by the Mormon Church. They happen to have two windows for the name, so you don't need to put it in quotation marks. If you do know a birth year, try to put it in there and where they might have lived. Always try to filter out as much information as you can so that you get more direct results in your search. Ancestry also has a two-window search for name, first and middle name, and last name. Again, quotation marks aren't needed. They do have a birth year box that has a calculator next to it. It allows you to go to exact birth year, plus or minus 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. Always try to put the gender in if it asks. If you do have information that you know is accurate to help you with your filtering of your searches, definitely put it in. You can, in Ancestry, you can click and unclick different records that you want to view. One of the things I mentioned earlier are Bibles. Now, not a lot of people write in Bibles as much as they used to. But if you do find a Bible that has information about your family written in it, it's a very valuable piece of information. So this is a sample of a Bible of the Howard family, no relation to me. You can see that these are all birth entries, people when they were born. The best thing about it is it seems to be firsthand knowledge written by the same person. I believe you can agree that the handwriting is the same all the way through this page. And it is within one person's lifetime, starting in 1760 and ending in 1833. So very much likely that this is written as things occurred. Firsthand, first-person knowledge is the best way to find information that you are looking for. Marriage records usually have good information that'll probably help you. It'll tell you the age at marriage that they were getting married at, their current residence. Just do one thing here. Okay. Sorry about that. I just wanted to mute her out. Okay. It usually tells you where the persons are getting married, were born, the marriage license date, which is usually close to when they got married, and that they were not feeble-minded, insane, or related to each other. This example was from 1946, and they did include those statements to make sure that everything was on the up and up. So this is a Washington marriage record for a gentleman named Jack J. Black, no relation. I don't know who he is. I wanted to show you the information that you can glean from a record like this. So right away, you can see his name and his age. Now, you don't know his birth year, but you do know that this was written in 1946 and dated on the 11th of January, 1946, to be specific. You can now know that he most likely was born in either January 1946 in 1924, or most likely in 1923. So then you can figure out his birth year. That he was born in Red Oak, Iowa, that he's living in Grandview, Washington, and that he is a laborer. And then you have his spouse, who was born in Rogersville, Missouri, and that she is 19. And it shows that she is also living in Grandview, Washington at the time, most likely with her betrothed. So now you can figure out, based on that, what year she was born in as well. Most of the military records that you're going to find out there could be found in the United States Archives, Ancestry, Family Search, and Fold 3. This document is a World War II draft registration card from my maternal grandfather, Joseph Fuhrer. It's showing where he is when this was written in 1942. He's living at 3500 Ogden Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, and has a business at 3440 Lincoln Avenue in Chicago as well. And that he owns a shoe repair business. It also shows his wife's name, Mrs. Judith Fuhrer, at the same address. But the best thing about this document is it tells me how old he is when this was written, his birth date, and where he was born. This will help me increase my knowledge of this person so I can go back and look for him either in the old country or later on with family. Obituaries that you most of the time can find on newspapers.com. There are groups on Facebook called Free Obituary Lookups, if you wanted to jot it down, that will look up obituaries for you, but you need the person's name, you need the state they died in, and the approximate year. Obituaries can show a lot about the information about your family. Sometimes it shows almost the whole family, and sometimes, unfortunately, very little information. It usually tells you the date of death, the place of death, and where a person was buried, and when a funeral was held. Obituaries are most times written by a family member and posted in a local newspaper. They could provide information about the rest of the family. Now, I want to cover one obituary in particular, because this is able to go back four different generations of parts of my family, because there's a lot of information here. So Louis Rosengill happens to be a great-grandfather of mine. I know that he is the beloved husband of the late Maria, nee Halper. This is helpful because now I know that Maria, with the maiden name Halper, that I can now look up information about her on her maiden name, was already deceased by the time this was written in March of 1959. So even if I didn't know when she died, I now know she died before March 1959. He's also the loving father of Hattie Ryder, Gussie Heinzel, Mary Grossman, Victoria Bessemer, Leo Charles Walter, and one son, Louis, in Austria. How is this helpful? Well, right away, I look at the names of the daughters, and they're not Rosengills. They all have individual last names, married names. I will now go look for Hattie's husband, Mr. Ryder, find out who he is. Gussie has a husband named Heinzel. What's his name? When was he born? I'm going to look for that. The sons, Leo, Charles, Walter, and one son, Louis, is going to be Rosengills. Okay. One thing I know, Louis most likely is a junior because his name is the same. And I know where he is in 1959. He's in Austria. Louis is also the grandfather of 15. Now, some of those grandchildren are going to have the same last name as the daughter's husband's name, Ryder, Heinzel, Grossman, and Bessemer. I will be able to attribute whose children they belong to, who the parents are based on their last name. He's also the great-grandfather of 7 children in March of 1959. I will also try to find those children. Some of them also might have the same name brought down from their father, Reiter, Heinzel, Grossman, and Bessemer, or Rosengill, which might be a little harder to find out which son is attributed to that child, but at least I know who they are. So this obituary helped me with my search based on the surname Prozik. It's not a very common name, not the most uncommon, but not very common. A DNA match that I had on 23andMe had this name. Contacting matches, if you DNA tested for information, will help verify information once you find out who they are. I was also able to find other DNA matches attributed to this family, helping me understand my biological family. As you can see, I have a couple of DNA matches, one named Prozik from one obituary, and here's the Heinzel name from the other one that I showed you. This tells me that because these are DNA matches and they are parts of that same surname family, that obituary is most likely about someone who's related to me in one way or another. That's how you figure things out, by placing them in a tree. Birth records usually include the person's name at birth, their date of birth, and the certificate number that's associated with the birth of a child, if it's on an index. Some birth records, like birth certificates, may contain the child's parents' names and address. This New York birth index is for my mother, Miriam Drucker, who was born on the 24th of March, 1934, and there's a number next to the date. This is going to be her certificate number. I can then contact New York State and request a copy of her birth certificate based on that information, her date and her name and her birth certificate number. Most death records that you're going to find are going to be found on the United States Social Security Death Index and the Social Security Applications and Claim Index. Some death records you can find on death certificates, but they're not very shared online. Some of them have been released as they get older and older, but most of the time they're kept with the family and not placed online. It'll tell you the person's name, their social security number, which again will never change and never move from one person to another, their race, their place and date of birth, when their social security number was issued and where they last resided. Usually has the death date. Sometimes there are household members and notes listed on some of these records. So this is a source citation for a Social Security Death Index for a relative of mine named Nathan Migdal. It has his Social Security number. If I find other documents related to this gentleman with the same number, I'm going to verify that it is the right person. His birth date is listed, and it shows that he was last resided in San Bernardino, California, and he died on the 3rd of September, 2005. Associated with that is the Application and Claims Index, showing the same birth date, but this one has more information. It shows where he was born. It says Warsaw, Poland. And it also lists his parents' name, including his mother's maiden name. The Social Security numbers match, so I know it's the same person. This one happens to have notes on it. So in December 1936, he has his name listed as Nathan Migdal. He also has his name listed as Michael Dale. Now, who's Michael Dale? Why does he have a different name? Always question things that don't make sense. Look for it. Try to find information to help you figure that out. So Michael Dale was born as Nat Migdal. Verification. He was an actor, known for a movie called Night Freight, Outcasts of the City, and Public Defender. He was also in East of Sumatra, and a movie and a show called Dragnet. So always question, it might not help me learn more and take me further back in time on my genealogy and my family tree, but it's very interesting to know about my relative. If you can find death certificates online about your family, you might be very lucky. They usually show the name of the person, their date of birth, their date of death, and where they were living, where they were born, and who their parents might be. This is going to help you go back in time and learn more about your family based on records that have good information. Death certificates, again, are first-hand personal knowledge. It was written and signed by family members and a doctor who attended the person when they died. So it's when it happened. If it's when it happened, it's more valuable than something that was written at a different time or by somebody that doesn't know firsthand information. A great source of information can be found on several different types of immigration records and passenger lists. Names and dates of the registrant and the spouse and children if they sailed with them, place of birth, date of birth are just some of the information that you will find about your ancestor. Passenger lists can help verify a petition for citizenship and for declaration of intent, letting people know that the government know that a person wants to be a citizen of the United States. There are usually some discrepancies between all documents. Always use common sense and verify what you can about the truth in the documents. For instance, I have a relative, Harry Drucker. It says he was born in Sambor, Poland, and that he was born the 21st of June, 1890. My grandmother's information and current address and birth date and arrival date are listed on this document as well. This is my mother's biological father. It shows the ship's name and when he arrived on June 4th, 1906, and his given name of Hirsch. Always look to witnesses on documents. This one happens to be my grandmother's sister. Okay. It has their maiden name listed. I can now go back in time and look for information about my grandmother, her sister, with their maiden name. Okay. And the main reason I knew it had to have been someone related to them is because they gave the same address that they are living at, St. Paul's Place in the Bronx. So here's the declaration of intent for the same person. Here he states that he was born in Galatia, and these documents were not done at the same time. So he might have been confused about his location of where he was born, or he gave a different location. Always research that. Here it states that he was arrived on June 2nd, 1906, not June 4th. Again, I know it's the same person. It has the grandmother, my grandmother, Lily, and it has all the same information. 21st of June, 1890, and that where he was born. Look at old maps. Try to see if you can find any discrepancies. So apparently Galatia is the territory. Sambor was a small town or city within Galatia. So he wasn't really lying. He was just being a little more detailed on one record than another. Here's the passenger list when he sailed across the ocean from Hamburg, Germany at age 16. This document states that he arrived on June 3rd, 1906. So now we have the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. Which one is it? It also lists the ship's name, America, so you can look up information about the ship itself. Here's a close-up of that same document. Here, clearly, an immigration official in Ellis Island stated that this boat arrived on June 4th. Don't go by the transcription all the time. Here it's transcribed as June 3rd. This guy said June 4th. Now it might have been 11:56 p.m. on June 3rd, and this guy says, close enough. June 4th it is. Okay. But since this had to be signed and written and filled in, that it arrived at port on June 4th, 1906, that is the date I'm going to stick with. So I'm going to trust this date on an official document. And here he is on line 22, and the information he gave to the people in Hamburg, Germany, when he boarded the ship, not when he departed the ship. And a picture of the ship he sailed across the Atlantic on in 1906, the SS America, which you can find lots of different pictures of old ships online that your family might have sailed across the ocean on. U.S. Census records are very specialized. You can find U.S. Census records in several different places, including Family Search, Ancestry, and online at the uscensus.gov. The easiest place to look for them are on Ancestry and Family Search. The U.S. Census is only available to the public for inspection 72 years after the latest census for privacy of the registrants. The 1950 census is now available. It became available last April. Most of the 1890 census materials were destroyed in a 1921 fire, and fragments of the U.S. Census population schedule exist only for a handful of states. And it wasn't the fire that damaged most of the material, it was the water. It wasn't cleaned up immediately. The pages filled with ink sat in water. So in this 1920 U.S. federal census for my grandfather, my maternal grandfather again, Joseph Fura, shows that he is the head of household, that he is male, white, age 34, and listed as married. But he's the only one on this page. Where's his wife? Where's his children? Right? If he had any. Why is he all by himself in Illinois, Franklin, 6 Mile District of Chicago? Well, if he says he's married, and we know from that other document I had that her name is Julia Fiora, and they were living in Chicago, look for her. She might be on a different census for some reason. Here's the 1920 census for Julia Fiora, living with 3 children, a few of my family members, living in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, the story goes he traveled on his own without the family, probably a lot cheaper, and looked for work and a new business opportunity in Chicago. In 1920, even though Chicago and St. Louis were fairly decent-sized city, St. Louis was not anywhere near as big as Chicago was. Look for your family on each subsequent census records. See where they moved. See how many more children they had. See if they, moved somewhere far. Here in the 1930 federal census, it has the whole family together. Joseph and Julia together now in Illinois, Cook County, Chicago, Illinois, with 8 children. The 3 that were on the first one, and 5 more, including my biological mother, Bella, age 2, living with them in a 2-bedroom apartment, renting for $25 a month. Don't you all wish we can go back to $25 a month rent? Living on West 15th Street in Chicago. Now, one of the things that you're going to get from the census are the head of household and his wife's parents' birthplaces. Okay. Julia says her family came from Russia, and Joseph says that he was from Yugoslavia, or Hungary. Okay. It shows where all the children were born. It also shows their ages. Now, you might not know what year they were born in, but you can do the math. In 1930, the 8-year-old most likely was born in 1922. Okay. Always look on one page or the next page or several pages back and forth to see if anybody that you're researching at that time, like the Fura family, are on other pages. Sometimes there are family members living nearby. They usually stayed pretty close together. Could be an aunt, uncle, or a sibling of the head of household, a brother or a sister of Joseph or Julia. All of the census records are now transcribed on Ancestry and Family Search. So you can look to see what the written document actually says. But always look to the handwritten document. Sometimes things were not transcribed perfectly. This one happened to be very clear. The enumerator had very good handwriting. So it shows all the family, where they were born, that he's a cobbler, he owns his own shop, working on his own account, and it shows all the members of the family and their ages. So it's a little easier to read on the transcribed document, the typewritten document that was transcribed, but always look to the handwritten because there could be errors in the transcription. Here we are 10 years later, the same family. Okay, Joseph and Julia now living on Ogden Avenue. Wait, that sounds familiar. That was their address, 3500 Ogden Avenue, on that other document, the World War II draft card. So now I'm verifying information from one document to another that I have the right family. Okay. As you can see, several of the family members left, 3 of them. The older children left. Sylvia is still there at age 25, guessing an old maid. And my mom, Bella, now age 12, 10 years later, right? Here is Julia's petition for naturalization. I was lucky to find this because now it tells me when Joseph and Julia got married, September 15, 1911 in Pocahontas, Virginia, where their son Sam was born a couple of years later. And then they moved to St. Louis because now we see Molly, who was born in 18, was born in St. Louis. And then they moved to Chicago because all the other children were born in Chicago. It also shows me when she arrived here on the 20th of October, 1910, on a ship called the SS Ivernia, landing in Boston, Massachusetts. Don't always assume your relatives landed at Ellis Island. A lot did, but some landed in Nova Scotia, in Charleston, North Carolina, in Boston, Massachusetts. And here happens to be a picture of the ISS Ivernia that my grandmother sailed across the ocean on in 1910. Researching is great, but using a family tree to gather information that you found is the best way to do it. A family tree is going to let you know exactly how you are related to the person in the family tree. Okay. So this is the profile page on Ancestry for my grandfather, Joseph, which is pretty much his own little web page on Ancestry. It has the facts listed that are added to the tree based on self-reporting that I reported, that he was born in Hungary in 1885, and he had a couple of siblings that are younger than him, and that his mother died when he was age 7. Then he had a half brother now. So his father got remarried or had another child and gave my grandfather a half brother, Aaron Armenfuhrer. It also shows some of the documents and sources of information I used to gather those facts, including the 1920, 30, and 40 census, some ancestry family trees, and the Cook County, Illinois death index. It'll show you the family I added to the tree, his parents, a drop down for siblings, and then his wife, a couple of the children listed. The rest of the family, including my mom at the bottom, again, always going to be at the bottom since she is the baby of the family, and all the other information that I added from different sources on Ancestry and other places. So build those family trees first, then do your research. Then DNA test if you feel you wish to do so. Modern DNA testing sites such as Ancestry, 23andMe, and MyHeritage are a great source for your research. I use these DNA test results for my clients to show me ethnic breakdown and who the people are that are linked to them through their DNA. Using these sites, you can begin a family tree using known information and DNA matches to expand the family tree. Ancestry gives you the ability to build as many family trees as you need and as large as you want. You could purchase other available family tree building software, such as Family Tree Maker and Roots Magic. 23andMe gives you the ability to see how your DNA matches are related to other matches, which is very useful. So a couple of my matches on Ancestry that I did test with, and DNA testing isn't for everybody, but if you're really into the genealogy and you consider using it, consider it a very useful tool. Okay, so it's going to show you the person's name and alias, or just initials, depending on what they chose to put in, a picture if they decided to use one. It'll show you a possible relationship, parent-child, is the only one they can tell you at 100% accuracy. Others might be a little different or not exactly how you thought. My two half-sisters, Linda and Susan, could have been grandparent-grandchild, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew matches instead of half-siblings. But we didn't find that to be true, considering they're not that, well, Linda is only 11 years older than I am. That would make it impossible for her to be my grandmother. I was able to color code on Ancestry my paternal side and my maternal side, and then go back and put in dots for grandparents as well. It'll tell you how much DNA you share with them in centimorgans and in shared percentage of DNA. It'll tell you if they have a tree that is public and if they link their DNA to it or not, and if you have a common ancestor based on information you have on your tree. So this is just part of my tree. I just wanted to show you what it looks like and how I added some of the people into my family, including the Grossmans that we mentioned in the obituaries, which is my biological father's siblings. And you can also look at it as a pedigree view, which means it's only you, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and so on, going back in time. This does not include aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, or anybody else. This is just direct lineage line back in time. So one of my main goals was not only to find out who they are, but to meet them. With COVID happening, it slowed down my able to travel, but I was able to beforehand visit with Norman, one of my DNA matches that I usually mention in the beginning of my program, but his father is Aaron Armin Fura, my grandfather's half brother. So he is my first cousin, but only a half first cousin. And on the other side is my half sister, Linda. We just call each other siblings, brother and sister. And this was our very first meeting in Alexandria, Virginia, where we got to meet each other for the first time. So I want to meet more of them. So I'm going to try to work on traveling soon. So this is a picture of my biological mother. Unfortunately, I was not able to meet up with her. She died before I got to know who she was. In 2003, she passed. My biological father is alive, but he doesn't want any contact. That's fine. This is my contact information. If you want to jot down my phone number or my email address, you could always best to get me that way. My email address and my phone number is the easiest way to get in touch with me. Excuse me, I needed a sip. The slides will be available at the library. If you just contact them, I will share them with the library. It is being recorded. It's going to be on YouTube for a couple of months before they take it down. And it was recorded. So you might be able to get a copy of the recording as well. Well, let me stop my sharing. That's all the information on that I have. Hi, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I know I gave you a lot of information. I usually give a lot of information, so I solicit questions from people here. I'm sure I have at least a few.
Does anybody, yeah, we have someone that has a question.
DNA question.
Okay.
So did you hear her? That's
I-
Pam.
Okay, like, on Ancestry, my great grandparents are famous from Ireland, but we don't know the exact location in Ireland. We're always told not to go on it. And then when I get my DNA matches, nobody's from there. It's from the, like, Derry and the southern part of Ireland. So how do you know where they came from, but you know, which area? When we're told one thing and it's shown another.
Okay. I think I understood the question. That some of your DNA matches have information showing that those family members you believed to be more of a Northern Ireland area are from more of a Southern Ireland area.
Correct.
You sort of have to remember that people did move around a lot. So they might have come from Northern Ireland at one time, but moved to Southern Ireland later on in their history. The best thing to do is when you go into the DNA matches, if they do have a tree, see what documents they have showing that they are from the southern part of Ireland. They might be mistaken as well. So always look to see what records they have listed under the person that you're looking at. Okay. Do your own research. Don't always assume that somebody else's family tree is actually correct. You know what I mean? Also, contact people on Facebook that deal with Ireland and certain areas, certain counties, and also see if you can contact churches that might be available that is still in the area that you believe they might have come from, because there might be records at a church in the northern part of Ireland where you say they were from to verify that's where they were actually from.
Was there anything else you wanted?
No, I just hit a roadblock from, because I found, where they were, between like 1854, so I'm finding those records are harder. There's not a lot of information sometimes. And if, he became like a citizen or naturalized, whatever they call it, anything that's listed because it's under, it doesn't give you like the town there. So that's what I have difficulty.
Yeah. Have her look up groups on Facebook that might be dealing with the particular location. There are a lot of people on Facebook groups on that do research on genealogy on Ireland. So definitely look that up. And then someone asked, the Facebook group that has free obituary lookups is pretty much that's it. Go to Facebook, go to the search window and type in free obituary lookups. And they are sorted by state. So you would need to know the person's name. You would need to know the state they died in, where the obituary might be, and the year. Obviously, at least the year. If you have a month, even better. But they do it for free for you. You just have to be a little patient because there are usually a lot of requests for different obituaries in different states. Anybody else have anything else? It could be on anything genealogy.
Okay, this is Nancy talking.
So I have a couple of questions. One is that my grandmother is listed in, one of the censuses as, with her 6 children, which makes perfect sense to me. But there's a place in the census that says, how many children do you have you birthed, basically, not including stillborn? And she put 7, but she only had 6 children at the time. Could that be just a mistake on the person who was writing the census, or does it mean that she may have had a child that died, and how could you ever verify that?
Yeah, usually the census takers get things fairly right. Sometimes, sometimes they make a mistake, but if somebody says 7, how many children have you had in your life? And she says 7, that's going to pretty much tell me that she had a child that didn't make it, that is now deceased already. How to verify that? Sometimes, especially if it was a stillbirth, depending on the year and the location, there is very few records. You would have to just mark down another child and see if there's any possible records out there. Sometimes there will not be any. If it was a stillbirth, they might have buried the child in the backyard, put a stone there, never contacted anybody. There at years ago, there was really no need to. So unfortunately, all depending on the year and the location, I guess. You can see if anybody else has a family tree record, if you have DNA tested, if anybody else on Ancestry has a tree listing a 7th child. That's about, it's hard to decipher that because you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. The other thing is, they list, I think it's a 1940 census. Let's see. So my great grandfather is listed my grandfather is listed as an emergency government worker. Do you know what that means? Because his family told me he was like a G-man, like the CIA kind of.
Emergency government worker?
Yeah, there's actually a category for it in the census. Was he a non-emergency government worker or an emergency government worker? This was in 1940.
I'm looking that up too, because I never really came across that, but 1940.
This is the first time I looked at it because it's listed as institutional laborer. But then when I looked closer to his name, that's where the category.
They might have it down as emergency conservation work, which was part of the Civilian Conservation Corps. Emergency workers. Yeah, I would have to say it was probably part of the Civilian Workmen's Corps, that was issued by Franklin Roosevelt in an order in 1933. Let's see what else it has. Civilian Conservation Corps was a voluntary government work relief program that ran from 33 to 42 in the United States for unemployed, unmarried men ages 18 to 25, eventually expanded from 17 to 28. So, right? Was that around the right time?
No, he was no.
Emergency
49
government.
at the time.
Very interesting. I'll have to look at it. So in the 1940 census, it added 11 new questions, employment, including emergency government work. If your ancestors participated in this type of work, they may have been hired by one of Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal organizations, which sponsored federally funded jobs for farmers, artists, and other laborers, and even students. So he might have been off working somewhere, but he's listed with the family, or is he on his own?
He's listed with the family.
Okay, well, I guess in 1940, they added that question because of Roosevelt's doing with the New Deal. And I guess that was just one of the questions. It really won't tell you exactly what he was doing at the time, but it was based on because of the Depression and people were unemployed. And I mean, I guess eventually they did expand it to other people who needed work. Always Google everything. I do also.
Well, I just found that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it never really tells you exactly what they did. I mean, sometimes it said what kind of business they were in on some of the census records, but if they were just an emergency government worker or worked for the CCC, then it was part of the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was another New Deal thing started by Roosevelt for people that were unemployed.
But it said, farther over to the left, institutional labor.
Yeah, I mean, the government was part of the institution. The government was the institution. They hired him to do work no matter what it was that they were able to, whatever work they could do, they gave him a job.
Yeah.
They gave him work. Everybody was so poor and broke at that time.
So in one of your slides, you showed one of your relatives at 126 Ludlow Street in New York City. I forgot, I didn't see what year that was, but I also had a relative in 1920, so they had been neighbors at 112 Ludlow Street in New York City.
Oh yeah, let's see which one that was, who that was. Let me see. So that was probably, I have Harry Drucker was in St. Paul's Place, Ludlow. Oh, Rocky, be quiet, my doggy. I'll have to look back and see who that was. But yeah, you can, yeah, I'll take a look again at that. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna find.
That was my maternal grandfather.
Oh yeah, I mean, people who came from the same area, they might have been neighbors. Yeah. I mean, always look on census. I always recommend people when they go to census records to look at not only the page that you're looking at, but all the other pages, a couple pages forward, a couple of pages back, because there might be relatives on the pages. People stayed together a lot more than, they didn't leave the area. They stayed with family. May have any other questions going on? Melissa, Linda, Suzanne, Sue. My wife's middle name is Suzanne. No, nothing else?
I can ask one more question.
Oh,
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So I have an appointment to go to the Bible Records office. And I'm making a list of things to look up. I've got the whole day available to do this, but I wonder if you have any suggestions on, whether I should spend the whole day there and like how much and, like how much is like normal and sensible to.
Well, where are you looking for vital records?
In New Haven.
Oh, in New Haven, Connecticut? Um, I mean, I guess it all depends on how many relatives you had in the area that you're looking for vital records on. Most of the records are available online.
So these
So-
are things I haven't been able to find online.
Yeah, if you can contact the Department of Vital Statistics in the state of Connecticut, they should have records for your family members that are available. You just have to fill out a form and pay a small fee. But yeah, I guess it all depends on how many people you're looking for information on at the time. If you have it all written down and you're very organized, it shouldn't take you too long to go through the records that you're looking for. Go to a nice restaurant.
Yeah, because a lot of the information that I find online is incomplete. For instance, my great grandparents' marriage record doesn't even have my great grandmother's last name listed. So I want to see the actual certificate
So-
that they have online.
Okay, so you found an index online
Yeah,
showing the information and you want to actually see the actual document.
yes,
Okay, and they're not showing the actual document online, obviously.
correct.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you're fairly well organized with what you want to find within, a couple of hours worth of research, if it takes you a little longer, it takes you a little longer to go through the records or to get the information from the people that are working there. I would just say 2 or 3 hours. I wouldn't recommend spending more. Go to a cemetery, see if there are some family members. You can kick a couple of headstones.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I always recommend not to go too, don't go too crazy, Life is too short to worry about a lot of people that, are not going to know you're looking for them.
Yeah, well, it's just, there's some people who died very young and I just want to find out how they died.
Yeah. That's sometimes tough to find out, unless you get a death certificate. If you can find a death certificate, then it's a little easier.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I have a question you mentioned the Social Security Death Index,
Right.
and death record, that's a good way for 1935 on to find death records or to find, at least find the date of death and that kind of information. But what about the records before that? Finding death records before 1935.
Well, that's a little harder. Sometimes you can find records if they were in the military, and they died during battle. Sometimes you can find family members' death certificates online. But generally, if you go back before Social Security, and somebody died, it was pretty much it was like a call to the house for the coroner. They come pick them up, they take them to a cemetery, they bury them, and that was pretty much it. So cemeteries and churches are going to be your best bets on that. There weren't a lot of records kept. People didn't feel it was necessary to keep a record. Churches did, the cemetery did, a coroner, but most of the time, it's very hard to find a death certificate online because people didn't share them. First of all, there was no online then. If someone does share it online now, you're lucky. The one I did post tonight and show is not my family. I was never able to really find a true death certificate of anybody. Obituaries, obviously, if you can find one in a newspaper, will tell you when they died, before 1935, before, Social Security started. You know, if genealogy is like fishing. If it was easy, they would have called it catching.
Yeah.
Right? There's always little tricks and techniques that you can use to find information. I really like using DNA testing. And the main reason is because it's going to give you a list of people that you are DNA related to going back through the years. that might be distant related that might have information. So as you build your tree, you add in a first cousin, and then you say, okay, I'm going to build it up, and now I'm into the second cousins, and now I can add DNA matches that are second cousins and then third cousins. Third cousins share a set of great grandparents. Okay, three G's and great grandparents, third cousins. So once you're able to build the tree back and you're able to find all these grandparents, then you can build it down into aunts and great aunts and uncles, and then first, second, third, fourth, fifth cousins. And some of the people online on Ancestry, your DNA matches might have really good trees and have very accurate information, but always make sure that you verify what they have. Don't automatic. Years ago, while back, Ancestry had a bad thing on their program where if you clicked on somebody's name, it sort of automatically added them to your tree. Now they have a review page, review before you add, and you can click and unclick the people in your DNA matches or your family tree information so that you don't keep adding them. Because I've seen people have, one guy had 7 wives, 3 of them were the same name. And he had 35 children. 14 of them had the same name because somebody just kept click 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 and add and add and add and add and add, and next thing you know, the tree's a mess. But always verify, see what information they have on the profile for each person on their tree. And I do like Ancestry the best because they have DNA testing, family tree building, and the research all in one spot for a decent price that I pay, but I have a lot of clients that I work with on that, so it's one of the go-tos.
How would you recommend finding somebody that, in my family, my grandmother's sister had a child out of wedlock and we don't know who the father was. And it's kind of a mystery. I think we can find her adoptive parents, but we just don't know who her father is.
Well,
I don't know
have
if
you,
we would-
right, well, has that person DNA tested? You don't know.
No, this person is deceased now, but
Oh, okay.
these people are deceased, but there was, I think my mother asked her mother who the father of this child was, and my grandmother told her that it was somebody that she said, oh, it's somebody you would know, or like something like that, or she wouldn't tell her who it was though. I don't know, it's just a mystery that we're trying to solve, but
Yeah, I mean,
um,
if someone directly related to that person DNA tests and you start going through the match list and working on the match list and start building the tree and you get to that family line, sooner or later there's going to be a hint to who the father might be. But it's work. It really is. I mean,
yeah,
especially if the person is no longer around to DNA test, um, you'd have to see approximate. Um, you have to match things up, like what year they were born, and then go back 9 months and say when were they conceived, where were they, where was their mother, where were they conceived, where was the mother, and where was the other father at the time. Okay. um, sometimes it was a coworker or a boss, an employer.
yeah.
Look, my biological father, he spread his sperm like rice at a wedding. Okay, so my biological father was married at the time, had conceived 2 children, me and a half sister, and both of us were given up for adoption by our respective mothers. And she recently came up as a new DNA match for me on Ancestry. So I was like, oh, who's this? I'm like, oh, okay. Do you know who your dad is? No. Who's your mom? I just found out who she is. I go, she's from Chicago? Yeah. She born around 1934 or so. Yeah, a little later than that. Okay. All right. Did she like bars? She go to a lot of bars? Come, you don't know what you're gonna find. My biological father was married, had 3 children, had two when I was conceived, and 3 when she was conceived, and so apparently he was still with his wife and running around. So I might end up with more.
Wow, it's amazing though. It's great you got to find her and meet her and everything.
Well, I didn't get to meet my mom.
Yeah.
I got to, well, I mean, I found my half sisters. I
Your
have,
sister, that's what I meant, yeah.
I have, uh, 3 half brothers that, only one of them speaks to me. And I have a bunch of sisters from each side. So, I mean, I have a very great relationship with Linda. So it was very nice to meet her, and we send cards and we send gifts and we talk on the phone all the time. So, some of them I want to meet, some of them I want to have a better relationship with, but life gets busy. Everybody's busy in their own thing. So sometimes it's tough. And work on your genealogy a little bit at a time. Don't cram it all into, don't be overconsumed, and work on it a little bit at a time. Use libraries, churches, DNA testing, family tree building, and slowly learn a little bit here and there. Use Google, use Facebook, wherever you can, use the free stuff.
We're a family search affiliate library, so we have you can get some of the records that the Church of Latter-day Saints digitized. Some of those images are not available, like when you just go on the site,
Right.
and setting up your free account. But if you come to the library, there are some images that that aren't available, that you can get if you're here, because we have a membership with them as a family search affiliate library. So
Okay, great. Yeah, and
that's yeah.
there's always their sites also. Look for the ones that they have available, family search, research places, and find more information. Remember, it's not always going to be easy. I have some that are very difficult, and I have some that are very easy. And I have a couple of Sons of the American Revolutions that I've done, applications I've done for people. Sometimes it's hard just finding a record for one of the family members, but going back, 8, 9 generations, it's a little tougher. But, Revolutionary War soldiers are very well documented. Not the British, not the Loyalists, but the Patriots. They're pretty well documented. Mayflower, very well documented. So, appreciate you guys. Any other questions, guys?
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very, very much. Thank you
Okay.
for joining us, and I think nothing else. Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much.
too,
Hopefully I
you
can
too.
do another presentation for you in the future.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, guys.
You too.